Okay, I think the best dimension would be act together, the community dimension of act together, which is we nurture relational cultures, identifying common interests and public issues affecting our communities so that we are ready to act together. Well, actually, I had thought something else, but mentor one another. That's it. The community dimension of mentor one another, which is we seek to develop mentoring relationships and a culture of mutual mentoring within all our communities. So I apologize for those of you who've read the Substack. This is going to be pretty, pretty similar. But Chris and I are members of Central Lutheran Church, and in the last few years, we've been through a lot. We lost our pastor to illness 18 months ago. We still have a deacon who serves us, and she is wonderful. We decided to leave our building because we could no longer afford to maintain it and put it on the market after 74 years. And we spent 6 months worshiping at Salt and Light Lutheran Church. And the idea was at the end of Easter, we would regroup and decide what are we going to do next. And we met for those 4 Sundays after Easter, and it was really lovely to be together. We saw some people we hadn't seen in months. It was also really painful and sad as we really saw our losses, our building, our church family, and our sense of comfort in, the fantasy that we know what's coming next. And we were really stuck because what had happened over the last 6 months was some people had found a new church in Salt and Light, and they'd fallen in love, and they wanted to stay. And some people had decided that they could not abide Salt and Light and could never go there. And they felt abandoned and rejected by the people who had found happiness at Salt and Light. And some people were still kind of back in the fantasy of, can't we just go it alone? Can't we just rent someplace and do it on our own? And it was really hard. And someone in our community suggested that we find 2 churches. And my first reaction to that, honestly, was, well, that'll never work. And, I'm sorry, that sounds like too much work to me, and it won't work. But the longer I thought about it, the more I realized that was actually kind of brilliant. And what I remembered was the parable of the lost sheep. And like all Jesus's parables, they're kind of challenging and odd, and they turn the world upside down. Because in the parable of the lost sheep, the shepherd has 100 sheep, but realizes he's lost one. And so he leaves the 99 and he goes and finds the one. And then he comes back and says, rejoice with me, for I've found my lost sheep. And in the context of Jesus, it's really about, I'm not going to lose any of you. But, in the context of our world, it's like, that is crazy. What's going to happen to those 99 while he's off wandering the hills for the one? And, our world is really very majority rules. And like the 99 of one is the way we like to think of it. But the beauty of that parable is that Jesus seeks all of us, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's impractical, even when it might even be stupid, and that every single one of us matters to God. And so, applying this parable to our situation, we really looked at that proposal harder, and we realized that that was the both and option that we should put before the congregation is, let's go forward with Salt and Light for those who want to, and let's find a church home for everyone else. And so that's what we voted to do. And that's what we're working on right now. We are having a meeting on Sunday with people who've self-identified as wanting to find somewhere besides Salt and Light and wanting help, and some people who've said that they want to accompany those folks and help those folks get there. I seriously doubt that we're gonna find just 2 churches. I think we may find there'll be a Salt and Light group, there might be a few people who go together somewhere else, and there are gonna be other people, including a couple, Peter, that I think are gonna end up at St. Michael and All Angels. Um, but we're gonna make sure that everyone has a church home, because I think that's a commitment we really should make. And I should mention that in general, these are our older members. They're less likely to be able to drive themselves, things like that. So they really do need this help. And I feel good about it. It's gonna be what we've committed to is we're gonna help find places for them, and we're gonna reconnect in September and decide as a community where we go from here. Um, what I wanna say is, trying to apply Marshall Gann's model, is that this parable applies to our world, and it especially applies right now. Um, I feel like the reigning political narrative is that or a reigning political narrative is that the government is eliminating stupid things that we should never have been doing, or it's getting rid of dangerous people that we should never have allowed into our country, or things like that. And what I would say is that actually the narrative we should have is every single person matters. So whether that is a former recipient of USAID funding, um, or a starving child in northern Gaza, or the researchers and scientists who are having their funding cut, um, gay, lesbian, and transgender people who are being marginalized again, and every government employee who's been laid off, and all the plants and animals that are suffering because of rollbacks on environmental protection matters. So I will remind you that the end of the parallel, it says, the shepherd says, "Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost." And I think our call is to gather our lost sheep and look for ways to bring them back. That's it.